Welcome to the deep dive. Today we've got something, well, it's a completely custom topic designed specifically for you.
Yeah, and it's an incredibly important one.
It really is. Like if you are a South African business owner or an entrepreneur or maybe an investor holding significant assets in your personal name, you are really going to want to listen closely to this one.
Absolutely, because the risks of doing that are, frankly, huge.
Right. So we are pulling our insights today from a highly detailed guide all about seamless asset migration, tax compliance, and, well, these professional frameworks developed by South African trust consultant Lumka Sturman.
Her work in this space is just fascinating.
It is, and our mission for this deep dive is to basically uncover the incredibly positive, wealth-preserving benefits of having a trust. And, to decode the exact steps you need to take to actually move your assets into it.
Right, without triggering a massive tax disaster.
Exactly, or getting your bank accounts frozen, because that happens. So, okay, let's unpack this. Imagine you have a state-of-the-art vault.
Okay, I like this.
Right, like thick steel doors, biometric locks, seismic sensors, the whole works. It is objectively the safest place in the world for your most valuable possessions.
Naturally.
But if you don't know the exact right way to carry your gold bars through the front door, well, you're going to trip every single alarm in the building.
Oh, yeah. Security's going to tackle you.
Exactly. Security tackles you, and your assets are instantly locked down.
That vault analogy actually perfectly captures the mechanics of what we're analyzing today. Because, the vault we're talking about is a formal trust structure.
Right.
And those alarms waiting to be tripped, those are the South African tax authorities, Sars, and the banking compliance system.
Which are no joke.
Not at all. Getting your wealth into a trust is, without a doubt, one of the most powerful moves you can make. But the source material makes it super clear that the implementation, like the actual physical and legal movement of your wealth, it requires absolute precision.
Yeah, you can't just wing it. But before we figure out how to bypass those alarms at the front door, we should probably establish why building this vault is even worth the effort in the first place.
That's a good point. Why go through the hassle?
Exactly. And reading through Lumka Sturman's frameworks, the core philosophy is actually beautifully simple. It really all comes down to one concept, which is separating ownership from risk.
Yeah, that is the foundational principle of all generational wealth. Think about how the average successful entrepreneur operates, right?
They just hustle and build.
Exactly. They start a business, it grows, they buy a nice house, they build up a share portfolio, maybe they buy some investment properties along the way.
But it's all in their name.
Yes. Everything is sitting in their personal name.
Yeah.
Which means the person who owns all those valuable assets is the exact same person taking on the daily risks of running a business.
Like signing commercial leases and dealing with clients.
Right, and dealing with suppliers and taking on debt.
So what does this all mean for the listener? Practically speaking, it means that if, say, one major client goes bankrupt and sues you, or a supplier forces your operating company into liquidation.
It's all exposed.
Yeah, everything you've built over a lifetime is just sitting right there on the table for creditors to grab.
Precisely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, moving those assets into a trust creates a profound psychological and legal shift.
A total game changer.
It is. You are structuring your life so that your operating company, the business that trades and takes on all those daily liabilities, carries all the risk. But your trust, which is this completely separate legal arrangement managed by trustees, that actually owns your wealth.
But you aren't just giving it away to strangers.
No, not at all.
Well,
You still maintain influence over how things are managed, usually by being a trustee yourself. But you completely remove your personal exposure.
so you essentially build a fortress around your family's future.
That's a great way to put it.
The business protects your income stream, but the trust protects your actual wealth. And I love that the sources point out this isn't just a strategy for, billionaires anymore.
No, definitely not.
It's highly accessible and frankly necessary for small to medium business owners, specifically those with turnovers between 1 million and 50 million rand.
Yeah, that's the sweet spot where this becomes crucial.
It just gives you the freedom to sleep at night knowing a single bad business deal won't cost you your family's home.
That peace of mind is invaluable, honestly. But that brings us right back to your vault analogy.
The alarms.
Right. Because if this fortress is so incredibly positive for generational wealth continuity and, long-term tax planning, the obvious question is, why doesn't everyone just transfer their house and their savings into a trust tomorrow morning?
Because the implementation is an absolute minefield.
It really is.
As you mentioned, we have two major gatekeepers watching your every move. SARS and the banks. Let's tackle SARS first because, wow, reading through these sources, I got the distinct impression that SARS views every single movement of an asset as a prime opportunity to send you a bill.
Even if you aren't cashing out.
Exactly. Even if you aren't actually cashing anything out, they want their cut.
Yeah, to understand Sors's perspective, you really have to look at the mechanics of tax law. To them, a trust is what they call a connected person to
Right.
you,
Right.
but it's still a separate taxpayer. So when value moves from you to that trust, legally, it is a disposal of an asset.
Even if I'm just moving it from my left pocket to my right pocket, essentially.
In their eyes, yes.
Mm.
Even if no actual money changes hands, SARS deems that transfer to have occurred at full market value. And that triggers a whole cascade of potential taxes.
Which is terrifying.
First up is capital gains tax, or CGT. If your property has gone up in value since you bought it, you are taxed on that growth. For top-tier earners, that translates to an effective tax rate of up to 18% on the gain.
18%. Just for moving it. And that's just the start, right? Let's say you decide, you know what, I'll just give my assets to the trust for free.
That idea.
Right. You transfer a 10 million Rand property for 0 Rand. The sources warn that this triggers donations tax.
Which is steep?
It's a massive 20% on anything over your 100,000 Rand annual exemption.
Yeah, it adds up fast.
Plus, if it's physical real estate, the trust has to pay transfer duty, which scales up to 13% for high-value properties. And if you're moving listed shares, there's a securities transfer tax of 0.25%.
The layers of taxation are just significant, which is exactly why unplanned transfers are so destructive to wealth.
I have to push back here, though, or at least play devil's advocate for the listener, because reading this, it feels like you are being heavily penalized just for trying to protect your own hard-earned money.
I hear that a lot.
It feels like trying to move your own furniture from your house into a secure storage unit. But the storage manager demands a 20% cut at the door, and the security guard demands to see the original receipt for the couch before you can even walk in. It's incredibly frustrating.
It is a very common frustration, and understandably so.
Yeah.
But we have to look at the underlying logic of why these tax laws exist in the first place.
Okay, lay it on me.
Historically, people used trusts specifically to hide wealth and completely avoid paying estate duty when they died. So SARS implemented these taxes to ensure that wealth doesn't just permanently vanish from the tax base.
Ah, so they're closing loopholes.
Exactly. The taxes are predictable. The friction you're talking about really only becomes a penalty when business owners act reactively.
Meaning they don't plan ahead.
Right. SARS operates highly sophisticated systems now. They're linked directly to the deeds registry and to banking data. If you don't proactively document the exact tax basis of these transfers before you make them, you will trigger those alarms.
And that leads perfectly into the second gatekeeper, which is your friendly neighborhood bank, because the bank isn't looking at your capital gains tax.
Not at all. The bank doesn't care about your tax bill. The bank's algorithms are calibrated for FICA compliance, the Financial Intelligence Center Act.
Right, the anti-money laundering stuff.
Exactly. Their primary mandate is to detect fraud, money laundering, and the financing of terrorism.
So if you suddenly move, say, 5 million Rand from your personal checking account into a brand new trust account, the bank's automated systems don't know that you're just doing responsible estate planning.
No, they just see massive capital flight.
Right. From the algorithm's perspective, it looks highly suspicious.
If you ambush your private banker with an unannounced transfer of that size, they are legally obligated to freeze your accounts pending a full investigation.
Wow.
Yeah, you could find yourself locked out of your own operating capital for weeks while you scramble to prove the origin of the funds.
Okay, so the stakes are very clear. SARS wants their exact percentage, correctly documented under the law, and the bank wants ironclad proof that you aren't laundering money.
That's the landscape.
The question for you listening is, since we know exactly where the tripwires are, how do we legally and efficiently bypass them?
And that's where the strategy comes in.
Because the sources outline some absolutely brilliant, fully compliant strategies used to minimize these tax hits, let's look at the real-world case studies, starting with what seems to be like the holy grail of asset transfer, the loan account structure.
Oh, the loan account structure is arguably the most powerful tool in the arsenal. And what's fascinating here is how it actually uses SARS's own rules to create efficiency.
Let's break down the mechanics of that. The sources use the Van Wyck family as an example.
Right, the Van Wykes. They had a 15 million rand listed share portfolio in their personal names,
Hmm.
and they wanted it safely inside the vault of their trust.
And if they had just donated that portfolio to the trust, the 20% donations tax would have been catastrophic.
Almost 3 million rand.
Yeah, they would have owed Sars nearly 3 million rand in cash just for the privilege of moving their own shares.
So they utilized a different mechanism. They didn't donate the shares, they sold them to the trust at full market value.
Wait, but a newly formed trust doesn't have 15 million rand in cash sitting in a bank account to pay for those shares?
Exactly. So to settle the purchase price, the trust issued a formal loan note to Mr. Van Wyck.
Ugh.
The trust now legally owes him 15 million rand. And because the trust paid full market value via this loan agreement, there is absolutely zero donations tax triggered.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because you can't just give your trust a 0% interest loan. The sources highlight this massive legislative pitfall called Section 7C of the Income Tax Act.
Yes, Section 7C is a perfect example of SARS closing another loophole.
They're always watching.
Always. Years ago, people would do exactly this, sell assets to a trust on an interest-free loan, and the wealth would just grow tax-free in the trust forever.
Sounds nice while it lasted.
It was. But SARS caught on and introduced Section 7C, which essentially says, if you don't charge interest on that loan, we are going to deem the interest you should have charged as an ongoing annual donation.
Ouch. So to stay compliant, the Van Wykes had to charge the official SARS interest rate on that 15 million rand loan, which is currently 7.75%.
That's the current official rate, yes.
But wait, let's do the math on that. 7.75% of 15 million is over 1.1 million rand a year in interest.
It's a lot.
Does the trust have to physically pay him over 1 million rand in cash every single year? Because that completely defeats the whole purpose of preserving the wealth inside the trust.
No, they don't have to physically pay it in cash. And this is where the architecture of the strategy just really shines.
Okay, how does it work?
The trustees formally pass a resolution acknowledging the interest charged. But do you remember that annual donations tax exemption we mentioned earlier?
The 100,000 rand one.
Exactly. Every individual in South Africa is legally allowed to donate 100,000 rand per year tax-free.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see the mechanism now. Mr. Van Wyck uses his 100,000 rand exemption not to give cash, but to formally forgive or waive 100,000 rand of the loan balance every single year.
You've got it. And his wife can do the exact same thing with her 100,000 rand exemption against her half of the loan.
That is amazing. So over a couple of decades, utilizing those annual waivers, that massive 15 million rand loan is methodically reduced and eventually eliminated.
Completely legal, fully transparent to SARS, and it doesn't trigger a single cent of donations tax.
It's like methodically dismantling a mountain, one carefully measured rock at a time. It's brilliant.
It really is an elegant solution.
But let's pivot to physical properties, because with real estate, capital gains tax and transfer duty are unavoidable, and they require actual cash flow to pay.
You can't just wave a wand and make those disappear.
Right. So how did the Mthembu family handle their 24 million rand investment property portfolio?
For physical real estate, the strategy shifts to what Lumka Sturman calls phased transfers. The Mthembas had 4 investment properties, right? Totaling 24 million rand.
A huge portfolio.
If they tried to shove all 4 through the vault door at the exact same time, the immediate upfront tax liability for CGT and transfer duty would have been over 5.6 million rand.
That amount of sudden tax would bankrupt a lot of healthy businesses just from the cash flow shock alone.
Absolutely. So they didn't do it all at once. They spread the migration out. They transferred 2 properties in year 1.
Okay.
That brought the immediate tax cost down to a much more manageable 2.18 million rand. Then they waited until year 3 to transfer the remaining 2 properties.
Oh, I get it. So they used the rental income generated by the first 2 properties, which is now safely flowing into the trust, to help fund the tax costs of moving the next 2 properties.
Exactly. The total tax paid over time might be similar, but by spreading the legal disposals across multiple different tax years, they completely neutralize the cash flow shock.
It is entirely about sequencing and liquidity management.
Which is why you need a plan.
Definitely. Which brings us to a slightly different scenario, the house you actually live in.
This one is always a mental hurdle for people.
I can imagine. The Pillay family example is fascinating because they transferred their 12 million rand primary residence into their trust.
And for your primary residence, you get to utilize the primary residence exclusion, which effectively excludes the first 2 million rand of your capital gain from CGT.
It's a fantastic relief mechanism, but there's a psychological catch here, and it goes right back to the core philosophy of separating ownership from risk.
It does.
Once that house is legally transferred into the trust, you don't own your house anymore.
You don't. The trust is the absolute legal owner.
Mm.
And to prove to Sars that this is a genuine arrangement and not just a sham structure where you're using the trust as your personal alter ego, the Pillais had to sign a formal market rate lease agreement with their own trust.
They literally pay monthly rent via bank transfer to live in the house that you want to own.
Yep.
I mean, paying rent to live in your own former bedroom feels completely counterintuitive. I imagine a lot of entrepreneurs push back hard on that.
Oh, they do, initially.
Mm-hmm.
It feels very strange to write that check. But think about the mechanics of the ecosystem they've created. By paying market rate rent into the trust's bank account, they are generating a legitimate income stream for the trust.
Oh, right.
The trust can then use that rental income to pay the 7.75% interest on the loan accounts we discussed earlier, or even use it to invest in new assets.
So it feeds the system.
Exactly. It is the ultimate proof to any auditor or creditor that the fortress is real and legally robust.
Let's look at one more complex scenario. Business restructuring.
This is a big one.
Let's say you own a living, breathing retail business in your personal name, like Mrs. Chetty in the sources. Her business was worth about 20 million rand, operating as a sole proprietorship.
Right.
You can't just sell your daily inventory and store fixtures to a trust overnight without causing absolute operational chaos.
It would be a nightmare.
Plus, moving those direct physical assets would have triggered over 4 million rand in immediate taxes.
And this is exactly why specialized knowledge is vital. You cannot use standard property transfer strategies for a trading business. It just doesn't work. Mrs. Chetty's advisors utilized a very specific mechanism called Section 42 rollover relief from the Income Tax Act.
Wait, what does rollover relief actually mean mechanically? Does the tax liability just disappear?
No, it doesn't disappear. It rolls over to a new entity.
Okay.
You are essentially telling Sars, look, I am not cashing out my business and taking the profits. I am simply changing the legal wrapper that my business is sitting inside.
Ah, the wrapper.
Exactly. So she first incorporated her sole proprietorship into a brand new formal company. Section 42 allows her to transfer all the business assets into this new company while completely deferring the immediate capital gains tax.
That's huge.
It is. The base cost of the old assets simply rolls over to become the base cost of her new shares in the company.
Ah, I see. So now she holds shares in a company rather than direct physical assets. And then she uses the loan account structure we talked about earlier to sell those shares to the trust.
Exactly the right sequence.
Yeah.
By utilizing Section 42 first, she deferred the massive tax hit on the physical assets and cleanly migrated the ownership of the new company into the trust.
She saved millions in upfront asset transfer taxes just by understanding the legal mechanics of the wrapper.
Which is why you don't do this alone.
Right. And hearing these brilliant strategies, Section 42 rollovers, loan account waivers, phased property transfers, it is so incredibly tempting as a self-starter entrepreneur to think, okay, I understand the mechanics now. I'm going to DIY this.
People think that all the time.
I'll just download a generic trust deed template from the internet, tell my bank manager I'm moving some money, and save myself the consulting fees.
Taking a DIY approach to asset migration is undoubtedly the most dangerous mistake a business owner could make.
Yeah, the sources are incredibly explicit about the pitfalls of rushing this. Let's say you set up the trust, but you accidentally mix your personal funds with the trust's funds, even temporarily, just to pay a quick bill.
You have instantly pierced the corporate veil.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Yeah.
A creditor can now argue that the trust is just your alter ego, and the courts will shatter your fortress and seize those assets.
Or if you set up the loan account but fail to formally document the trustee resolutions for that 7.75% interest every single year,
Yes.
you accrue massive invisible tax liabilities under Section 7C that will absolutely decimate your estate down the line.
It's a ticking time bomb.
You wouldn't attempt to rewire the electrical mains on your own house after watching a 5-minute tutorial video to save a few bucks.
I hope not.
So why on earth would you DIY the legal and tax wiring of your generational wealth?
This raises an important question, though, about timelines and setting realistic expectations. because proper implementation is not a weekend project.
No, definitely not.
The sources outline a very realistic schedule. You need 2 to 4 months purely for the initial planning.
Wow, just for planning.
Yeah, calculating the CGT implications, getting professional valuations, drafting the loan agreements. Then you need 4 to 8 weeks just to open the specialized trust bank accounts and brokerage accounts, carefully navigating all the FICA compliance requirements we talked about.
The algorithms.
Right. Finally, if there is physical property involved, it can take up to 6 months for the actual transfers to clear through the deeds office.
Which brings us directly to why having a guide is non-negotiable and why the sources highlight Limke Sturman's specific approach. She operates as a trust consultant and asset protection specialist.
Yes.
And reading through her methodology, her job isn't just to quickly write up a legal document. She acts as like the master architect and the general contractor for this entire intricate process.
That is the perfect way to describe it.
Hmm.
You are bringing in someone who fluently speaks the language of the conveyancing attorneys, the language of the bank's FICA compliance department, and the language of Sars.
A translator for your wealth.
Essentially, yes. She ensures that the trustee resolutions, the transfer agreements, and the professional property valuations are perfectly aligned and documented before anyone even asks to see them.
The sources actually detail her specific structured offerings, which makes this highly actionable for you listening. Like, she offers a foundation audit for 25,970 Rand.
Which is an in-depth exposure risk analysis.
Right, and it comes with a customized structure recommendation. But if you need the complete architectural plans, there's the Asset Protection Blueprint session for 39,990 Rand.
That maps out the exact asset flow, the tax sequencing, and provides all the document checklists.
And then she offers custom full setup packages where she handles the end-to-end establishment. Plus, and I think this is crucial, annual fortress checkups.
Yes, the ongoing maintenance.
Because setting it up is one thing, but making sure your compliance doesn't slip in year 2 or year 3 is where most people actually fail.
The best way to view those consulting packages isn't as a business expense. It is a fundamental investment in certainty. Mistakes in asset migration are completely irreversible and exponentially more expensive than doing it right the very first time.
Oh, without a doubt.
Having your operating capital frozen by a bank or getting hit with an unexpected 2 million Rand tax bill because you misunderstood Section 7C will cost you vastly more than securing an expert architect.
100%. If you are serious about building and protecting your wealth in South Africa, you need to visit www.lumcasterman.com.
Highly recommend it.
You can learn more about her frameworks, join her exclusive waitlist, or book an implementation planning consultation directly on the site. Again, that is www.lumcasterman.lumps.com.
It's the best first step you can take.
So, to bring all of these complex threads together for you, today we've explored the immense positive power of separating your personal risk from your legal ownership.
We've mapped out exactly how the SARS and banking compliance tripwires operate.
We've looked under the hood of brilliant, legally robust strategies. Things like the loan account waivers to legally manage donations tax, and phased transfers to handle the cash flow realities of capital gains tax.
And we've established that bringing in an expert architect like Limke Sturman is the most reliable way to build your fortress.
It ultimately comes down to taking proactive control of your legacy rather than leaving it exposed to chance.
I couldn't agree more.
But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over.
Okay.
We've talked extensively today about the heavy legal and financial mechanics of giving up the direct ownership of your assets to a trust. But if a trust legally separates your identity from your assets, how does that change your psychological relationship with wealth?
Oh, that's an interesting angle.
Right. Does giving up the legal ownership of your money, of your physical house, of your hard-earned investments actually make you feel more secure?
Because it's untouchable.
Exactly. And by knowing your family's future is safely locked away inside that impenetrable vault, does it finally free you up to take the bold, expansive business risks you've been holding back on?
That is a fascinating shift in perspective to consider.
We'll leave you to think about that. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.